Hey everyone, and welcome. So, if you're someone who builds software, you already know that testing is, well, it's everything. But what if I told you the real secret to amazing testing isn't just running more tests, it's about running the right ones? That's the whole game behind test design. And today, we're going to dive into how you can test smarter, not harder. All right, let's just jump right into the single biggest problem in all of testing. Think about any app you use. Every button, every menu, every single thing you could possibly type, the number of combinations is just mind-boggling. It's basically infinite. So this dream of testing everything, it's not just hard, you're about to see it's mathematically impossible. To really get a feel for this, let's picture a super simple scenario. Imagine a settings page, and on it there are just 75 on-off switches. That's it. Doesn't sound too crazy, right? So to test every single possible combination of those switches, how many tests do you think you'd have to run? Just take a guess. Okay, you ready for this? The answer is almost 38 times sextillion. That is a number so big, it honestly breaks my brain a little. Even if you could somehow run a billion tests every single second, it would still take you over a billion years to get through them all. So yeah, exhaustive testing, it's completely off the table. And this brings us to, the fundamental truth of software quality. We just cannot test everything. It's not about being lazy or cutting corners, it's just a fact. And honestly, accepting that fact is freeing because it lets us ask a way better question, which is, okay, since our time is limited, what are the absolute best things for us to test? So if we can't test it all, what's the point? Well, the goal is to be strategic. It's all about figuring out how to get the most bang for your buck, the most bug-finding power out of the fewest possible tests you can run. And that right there is the whole heart of test design. So let's put a name to it. What is test design? It's basically your plan of attack. It's the process you use to build a set of test cases that are super efficient and super effective, making sure you're focusing all your energy exactly where it's going to have the biggest impact. This right here, this is our mantra. This is what we should be thinking all the time. How do we create the smallest, most manageable set of tests that still gives us the best possible confidence? To do that, we need some powerful tools in our toolkit. Okay, let's get into our first set of tools. These are called black box techniques. And the name makes sense because you don't actually need to see the code inside the software. Nope, you just focus on the inputs and the outputs, treating the whole thing like a mysterious black box. These techniques are all about using logic and structure. Our first technique, equivalence partitioning, is a real game changer for cutting down the number of tests you need. The idea is so simple but so powerful. A lot of different inputs are going to be treated the exact same way by the system. So why test all of them? Instead, we just group them into these partitions and test one single value from each group. Look how this totally simplifies the problem. Let's say you have a password field, and it needs to be between 8 and 16 characters. You don't need to test a password with 8 characters, then 9, then 10, and so on. No way. You just make a few groups. One group for valid passwords, say you test with 12 characters, one for stuff that's too short, like 5 characters, and one for passwords that are too long, maybe 20 characters. And boom, 3 tests now cover the logic for countless possibilities. All right, now for the perfect partner to equivalence partitioning. This one's called Boundary Value Analysis, or BVA, and it's all about zeroing in on the exact spots where bugs just love to hang out. Seriously, decades of testing have shown us that bugs just cluster at the edges. This is where you get those classic off-by-1 errors, where a developer used a less than sign when they should have used less than or equal to. BVA tells us to specifically attack these boundaries because that's where the risk is highest. So for instance, if a form says the valid age is 18 to 65, we're not going to waste our time testing age 42. It's probably fine. Instead, we test right on the boundaries. 17, which is just below, 18, the absolute minimum, 65, the maximum, and 66, which is just over. With just those 4 tests, we've hammered the highest risk areas. It's just so incredibly efficient. Okay, our last systematic technique is for those more complicated situations, where you've got a bunch of different settings that all interact with each other. This is where that number of combinations can explode all over again, and pairwise testing is here to save the day. So just imagine you're testing a web app. You've got, 3 operating systems, 5 browsers, and maybe a plugin that can be on or off. If you wanted to test every single one of those combinations, you're already at 30 separate tests. And if you add just one more variable, that number shoots through the roof. It gets out of control so fast. Pairwise testing works on this really clever assumption that most bugs are caused by either a single setting or the interaction between two settings. I mean, think about it. It's pretty rare that a bug only shows up when you have Windows and Firefox and a plugin enabled all at the same time. So this technique just generates a much smaller set of tests that make sure every possible pair of options gets tested at least once. It's brilliant. So we've covered the logical systematic tools. That's one side of the coin. But you know what? Formulas and structured plans, they can't find every bug. So now we're going to flip the script and look at a totally different approach, one that is all about human creativity, intuition, and experience. These next few techniques, they're less about rules and more about just leveraging the tester's own gut feelings, their knowledge, and their skill. This is where the human element really, really shines. Think of exploratory testing as kind of like structured improv. The tester becomes a detective, right? They're exploring the app, learning about it, and designing and running tests all at the same time. It's totally unscripted, and it relies on the tester's own curiosity to find those weird bugs that a rigid, pre-planned test case would just completely miss. And finally, we have error guessing. This is pure experience in action. You know, a tester who's been around for a while develops this sixth sense. They just know that developers often forget to handle empty fields, or that file uploads are always tricky. So they use that intuition to guess where the weak spots are, and they target them directly. It's an amazing way to find high-impact bugs really, really fast. So there we have it. We've looked at the systematic, logic-based stuff and the intuitive, experience-based stuff. But the secret isn't picking one side. No way. A truly great tester knows how to combine all of these into one powerful strategic approach. The big thing to remember is that you now have a toolkit. When you see a simple input box, your brain should go, equivalence partitioning and boundary value analysis. When you see a screen with a million different settings, pairwise testing is my friend here. And you have to always make time for exploratory testing and error guessing to find all the stuff that those structured methods just can't see. And really, that's what it all comes down to. Test design takes testing from being just this repetitive chore to being an intellectual challenge. It's about thinking, it's about strategy, and it's about risk. It's about using your brain to outsmart the insane complexity of software, so you can deliver an amazing product with total confidence. So I'm going to leave you with a little challenge. Think about the software you're working on right now. Which one of these techniques could you apply, like today? Pick one, give it a shot, and start your journey to becoming a smarter, more strategic tester. Thanks for hanging out with me.